Hello, my name is Michael Randolph. Michelle Obama made a statement a little while back that is related to this presentation. She stated that she was dealing with mild depression. You're going to be surprised as we go through this presentation on how many people are dealing with some form of depression. Violence has become commonplace in poor, high crime communities of color throughout the nation. In order to understand why they kill in the streets, you have to understand domestic violence and intimate partner violence. There is a co-relationship between the level of violence in the streets and domestic violence and intimate partner violence. Violence is in our DNA. From slavery, 400 years, to now, African Americans have experienced upon themselves violence. The question is not the level of violence in African Pacific community. The question is, why isn't everybody as violent? So that's the reason for the presentation tonight. We want to talk about PTSD in the Black community. And poor communities where there's a high level of violence, people in those communities experience the same trauma as soldiers in Afghanistan, during the Vietnam War, and any form of war. Mental health illness and substance abuse use disorders are involved in 1 out of every 9 emergency calls. 40 to 50% of the homeless are suffering from mental illness. Let's talk about the symptoms of PTSD, commonly known in the medical field as post-traumatic stress disorder. So the symptoms are reliving, flashbacks, hallucination, nightmares. The second is avoiding people, place, and things. The next is excessive arousal, increased alertness, anger, fits of anger. The next is negative thoughts or feelings such as guilt. And then fourth, finally, flat effects. Here's what we know. And a lot of this information is going to be coming from Michelle. And I'm using her article, along with other articles, to tell a story. In Chicago, Cook County Hospital, more than 1 in 10 patients that are screened show some symptom of PTSD. It is even higher rate among those with gun wounds. The purpose of psychological ripple of these psychological ripple effects suggests that in some neighborhoods, Tampa, Baltimore, listen up, nearly every family is touched by traumatic violence. Beyond the direct victims of shootings and assaults, those affected include the loved ones of survivors who struggle to help family members cope. Let's talk about evidence in a recent study in Atlanta. They found that people in inner cities that were actually confronted with gun violence exhibit the same symptoms as those in Vietnam, Vietnam, Afghanistan. At least 1 in 3 respondents report that at some point in their lives they had experienced PTSD symptoms. Respondents report that in an array of stress responses, including flashback, that is how they responded to it. The nationwide PTSD rate is 7 to 8%, with generally higher rates among Blacks and females. Among the most trauma-ridden neighborhoods are impoverished communities of color, where inequality proves a sense of hopelessness. Now, this drives vulnerable youth deeper into violence. You want to know why they do what they do? You want to know why they kill? Both as victims and as predators. Study on youth have traced PTSD symptoms back to the form of violence from street shootings and police chases to sexual assault that have become routine in rough city neighborhoods. Let me say it again. Routine, gun violence, sexual assaults, and being chased by the police. Violence in communities can affect the fundamental institutions of the family, work, and education. We know that it can undermine people's ability to work and to care for their children. Findings from a large-scale national study indicated that while African Americans have a lower risk of many anxiety disorders, they have a 9.1% prevalency rate for PTSD, compared to 6.8% in white America. Research suggests that adult African Americans are 20% more likely to experience a serious mental health problem. And there's more. Black and emerging adults from age 18 to 25 have experienced a higher rate of mental health problems and a lower rate of mental health services. In Black communities, excuse me, there is a reluctance reluctance to seek both psychological, physical and mental health care. And this can often be attributed to a general distrust of the medical establishment. Mental health care is stagnated within Black communities. There's 1 in 3 African Americans who struggle with mental health issues will ever receive the appropriate care. In African American communities, mental health issues are often compounded by psychological stress of systemic racism. As a result, African American adults are 20% more likely to report serious psychological distress than white adults. There's 1 in 3 African Americans who struggle with mental health issues will ever receive appropriate treatment. Think about it. At the same time, mental health care in the Black community is viewed as a weakness. It's running counter to the survival instinct that we've gotten from systemic oppressions or chronic racism. Listen up. Most of the pushback against receiving treatment stems from ideas along those lines. Let's look at that. Let's get deep. Study by the Pew Research Center revealed that African Americans are among the most religious of any racial or ethnic group in the United States. 87% report being part of a formal religious organization, such as prayer and faith, are often seen as a way to deal with health issues. And because of that, a lot of people will rather pray it away than to seek formal medical treatment. So, how do we solve the problem? Well, one thing, we have to stop using old school approach. Old school thinking, acknowledgement of community violence as a mere crime problem. We have to change that. New school thinking, view cycles of trauma as a collective social trauma, both a public health serves and a moral issue. And dealing with mental health, old school. View mental health as a weakness, old school. Use a pharmaceutical approach to mental health, new school. Holistic medicine, homeopathic medicine, body, mind, and spirit, and alternative medicine. New school, integrating public health with community development. There is a link between public health and community development. And there is a new school of thought that supports this approach. So, join us on June the 3rd at 6 p.m. during our virtual community meeting, in which we're going to be focusing on strategy to not only stop the killing, but to create a village. Now you want to hear from people from around the nations that are what we call community builders. They will tell that story on what they did in their community. You're going to learn about what we're doing in this area and in the Florida area, as well as the Baltimore area, because we're doing a partnership with Baltimore, and we call it the Baltimore-Tampa model approach, which is going to be a East Coast approach to transforming poor communities. Now, keep in mind, this is only one component of that particular meeting. During that meeting, we're going to be talking about economic development, over health issues, substance abuse, youth problems, all those things that make a community sick. So we definitely want you to engage in this particular workshop. Now, seats are filling up real fast, and we can only have like 100, total of 100. And then if you're not part of the 100, not to worry, we're going to use this to Facebook it live to the nation. As a matter of fact, we're getting inquiries from way as Nigeria and other places, African nations that are looking at what we're doing. And other parts of the world that also want to look at what we're doing. So you can connect to us on Zoom. That's the first link here. Or you can connect to us at our website, our email, or on Facebook. And you can connect to us on Facebook by way of the first Facebook Connect, or you can connect to us in our groups. The group on Facebook is called Next Generation New School Approach to Transforming Poor Communities. Hear from experts on violence in the Black communities. The Black community as we move forward towards stopping the pain that's in our neighborhood. Thank you very much, and I hope this in some way will help bring out the monster of mental health and the need to every neighborhood group, every faith-based group to come together using a holistic approach to stop the pain. Thank you.